What's up, everybody? We want to thank you for tuning in to From Prison to Purpose. My name is Jimmy McGill, and I am a returning citizen from incarceration. I'm an author. I'm a public speaker. I'm a father. I'm a homeowner. I'm a taxpayer. I hold 2 executive director roles, one as the executive director of Next Step Recovery Housing, and I am the newly appointed director of the National Peer Recovery Alliance. But I'm all of these things because I am a person in long-term recovery from a 23-year drug addiction that almost destroyed my life. It is by popular demand that we are bringing on Nick Butler today. And Nick is a resident at our recovery house. You guys have been requesting to hear more of his story. You see his shorts, you see his pictures on Facebook. And so without any further ado, Nick, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
So what did your substance use start? Like what was the first substance you used?
Narcos, hydros, straight into it. Opiates, it's what started it out, all of it. I remember, I'm this kid and I still can't remember what it was that turned me onto them. But I realized that they were out there, and then I put 2 and 2 together at some point that, my grandparents have a medicine cabinet and in their bathroom. And then, one day I'm just in the bathroom and I decide to look through them and I find some basically prospect pill bottles that say something on the side that makes me think like maybe these are the kind of pills that I've heard about. And I remember the names or write them down, or I can't remember how I did it, but I go home and I look them up and I found some of them were, and so I go back and I start, like little by little, because of course at first, I'm scared that they're going to notice that they're gone. And so I start taking, a few at a time, with me or whatever, or eat some there. And man, I just love it. I just want as much of it as I can get, as often as I can get, until the medicine cabinet's clean, here I come.
Yeah. Okay.
For sure.
So the drug that starts your initial substance use disorder is opiates, like no marijuana.
The same drug that finishes a bunch of people, like I'm just straight into that.
Yeah, you go one way, the dumb way, straight to the max.
Straight to it.
That's the only thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so alcohol and marijuana come into play after the opiates.
Yeah, alcohol for sure comes into a major role into it. Later on, a farm, a bunch of cows and land, and my dad was mowing hay, I think, and taking care of the place while my grandpa was worrying about his wife. And somewhere in there, I found a little bit of free time, and they gave me a little responsibility to take care of some stuff. I didn't have nobody looking over my shoulder. And I remember taking that jug and I thought, well, I just sneak down here to the barn and drink some of it. Ain't nobody around. I can do it. It'll be okay. And it's about a half a gallon jug. And I think I drank that whole thing, just at once, just turned it up and drank it. 14 years old, had never really even been drunk, maybe caught a buzz, but did not even know that this whole blackout thing was even something. And I wake up later that day and I'm in the hospital.
Yeah.
And I drove this 4-wheeler down there. I drank this bottle and I drove it back, tried to drive it back, wrecked it, went up in the yard, belligerently drunk. I don't remember any of it. My mother had showed up at my grandpa's house wherever I came back and wrecked the 4-wheeler right in their front yard. And she's trying to figure out what's wrong with me. I ended up, like on her, she had bite marks on her where I bit her.
You bit your grandma?
My mom.
Your mama?
My mom. Yeah. This is for real. Called her by other names. I mean, told her name was Timothy, all sorts of stuff.
And this is from the bottle.
This is from the bottle. Yeah. And,
that was that special moonshine.
Yeah, man, I think that was that old rock gut something,
well, whatever it was, it made you bite your mama. You don't ever need to drink
never again. Don't need to. But
did you think we were a dog?
Man, I don't know. If I could know what was going through my mind when all that was going on, but
we got another guy at the house that would be so belligerently drunk. I'm not going to say his name, but his story is not ours to tell. But like his mom and dad would break in his house to steal his cat because he would be so drunk he couldn't even take care of his cat. And one time he slapped his mama, didn't know who she was, thought she was somebody breaking in his house. Popped her. Alcohol is no respecter.
Yeah. No, it's not. And you would think that would really like put a taste in my mouth to, not drink anymore, but
The opposite.
completely the opposite. Maybe for a while, but maybe it scared, the kid for a little bit, but, the addict that was there, he was still, I
Scared
remember
the kid, but not the addict.
Man,
Boy, that's fire, Nick.
it's real.
You have a more in-depth perception. I think you're probably far more advanced in your recovery than you realize.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
I've gotten clean before for a couple of months, because I had to, but this is the first time that I've ever actually inside of me had any want to. And so I'm just like, I feel like I'm grabbing at everything that I think is something that might, be fuel for me to, to not use again. Because I don't want to, this is the first time that I've ever really tried to get clean, and I want it to stick.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to, where I was before this.
Yeah. So the alcohol, when you bit your mom, was that your first experience with alcohol? Was that the first time you drank?
It wasn't the first time that I had drank anything, but it was the first time that I had really, drank. It was probably the fourth or fifth time that I had drank, period.
Yeah.
But it was the first time I'd ever been drunk.
Blackout drunk.
First time I'd ever really been hardly drunk at all, And fast forward, a few years, and I still have not, even thought about not doing these painkillers anymore. Because 10th grade, I get kicked out of high school. My friend is on a hunting trip, has a .22 pistol, shoots himself in the leg on accident.
Cheddar Bob.
Man, shoots himself in the leg on accident, gets a prescription for a bunch of pills, a bunch of hydros.
now you got you want to shoot yourself in the
For real. I remember being like, dang, how bad was it? That's really, like how bad that hurt.
You was really entertaining.
Oh, I was
that's the links we go.
Man, as a kid, like not even 16 yet, probably, actually, and that's real. Like I never even said anything about that to anybody, but I remember actually thinking that, and being like, nah, I can't do that, or nah, but it really crossed my mind.
Of course it did.
It really did.
People break their hands and stab themselves all the time to get prescriptions. What did he shoot himself with? It
was a just .22 long rifle pistol. I think he was playing with it, and it just went off, like he didn't hit him somewhere else, but hit him right in the top of the leg. And they gave him a bunch of hydro 10s. I mean, a big script of them.
Narcos.
He comes straight to school with them, I remember he had them in a snuff can, and he popped that thing open. And I knew what it was. So a couple of my friends knew what they were, and, we're like, hey, well, kid's trying to be cool. He just gave them, I think I took like 10 or 12 of them, throughout one day. And I took so many that whenever we finally got caught and they asked me how many I took, and I told them, they didn't believe me. They thought I took, but nah, like I took that many of them. And we ended up in trouble. Somebody started acting stupid. One of the other friends that took some, and somebody told on him, and then he told on us, and everybody got caught.
Yeah.
Everybody got caught. And mom and dad, mad. I'm in trouble for forever. They're going to kill me. But still.
Yeah.
Still wasn't.
So, well, what did your mom do when you bit her?
I don't, my mom's got to she's got a heart of gold. I'm not sure. I know that even after I bit her, she still called an ambulance, got on the ambulance ride with me,
it's your mama.
It's my mama, and that's it's my best friend right there.
Your mom and dad have got to be so proud of you for the man that you are right now, Nick, that they get their son back because of recovery.
Yeah.
So now mom and dad, what'd they do when you get caught popping the narcos at school?
Mom and dad are pretty old fashioned, so I got my butt whooped.
Nice.
Yeah.
At 16?
Oh yeah. At 16.
Pop didn't play.
If
he was that belt. He's a samurai with that belt.
if you was under 18, you weren't an adult, and he was still in charge of you.
You whooped.
And you whooped.
Precision.
Yeah.
Laser cut belt.
But man, but that one of the few times that was one of the few times I actually got caught. But, you know, like all these other times, you know, I'm just learning how to be sneaky with it. And I'm perfecting that, you know, because the amount of times that I did stuff versus the amount of times that I got caught, you know, there was sure a lot more times that I got away with it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So how old are you the first time you get arrested? And what do you get arrested for?
Okay, so I'm 18. Just recently graduated, and I had started using meth, which is my drug of choice, you know, about 2 months prior to this, maybe 3.
Okay.
And they have this party, you know, where a bunch of seniors have just graduated, everybody's going, and about 3 o'clock in the morning at this party, you know, I'm blackout drunk, like I am at every party, and the parents show up and they're like, "Hey, everybody's got to leave. Like, we didn't know this was even going on. Like, y'all got to go." And so I go to leave, and I just remember flashes of it. I get in my truck and I'm driving back to my friend's house, who was actually my dealer for my drug of choice at the time. And I remember leaving the party and hitting a gate post on the way out. And then I'm on the road, and the next thing I remember is I'm sitting at his house, and he's telling me, "Man, you can't stay here. Like, you know, like you can't sleep in your truck in my driveway. Like, you got to get out of here." And I'm like, "All right, you know, like and I think to myself, like, my buddy's got this cabin a little ways up, you know, about 10 miles. I'm gonna drive to that." Well, I end up taking, and I guess I thought I pulled up to his cabin or something, and I end up parking in the middle of a highway and kill my truck, lay my seat back, go to sleep, straddle the middle line on a 2-lane highway. At about 3 o'clock in the morning, the church van rolls up on me, coming back from a youth trip, and call the police. Cop shows up. First thing I remember is knocking on my window, you know, and I come to, you know, and I'm thinking, crap, you know, and they ended up only getting me for like drunk on the highway, public and talk, same thing. Or that's what they said, but that's what they arrested me for. And you know, the cop, I thought at the time, was really giving me a break, but it really, like, maybe would have been a wake-up call then. But the cop found a lot of stuff on me, and he didn't even tell my parents about it, let alone arrest me for it. You know, I didn't even get a DUI out of the whole deal. Like, I mean, I barely got anything, just this little misdemeanor. And but I spent about 5 days in jail over it. You know, mom and dad don't bond you out. They're gonna let you sit. And so about 5 days later, I get out and go right back to it.
Yeah. So how old are you the first time you go to prison?
I turned 23 in county jail. I'm so fast forward from that, you know, and it's just, my use has gone from the opiates and the alcohol to that, and to that plus, you know, the meth. And I found out I love that, you know, more than anything. So I quit doing pretty much everything else, you know.
Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, that's really, like, that was what was around, you know, and everything else just takes money or time away from me getting that. So that's all I'm doing all day, every day. You know, I'm already starting to see, like, huge negative consequences in my life. I thought I was keeping it under control. You know, I had a good job for a while. I'm working at this lumber yard, making pretty good money. I'm supposed to be getting married, and a little side story on that. I'm supposed to be getting married to, which was the head of the DTF's daughter from that area, from
Nice.
Southwest Drug Task Force. You know, he was kind of the head honcho over that, and he knew a little bit about my background. And well, me and his daughter, you know, we're hitting it off, and we've been together for a few years. Well, probably like 5 days before our wedding. I mean, like, a very nice, expensive wedding that, you know, put a lot of money into it and stuff. She's found out that I'm using, and she leaves. Well, in my head, I'm like, you know, ain't nothing holding me back from getting high all the time now. And so, like, within, like,
that's crazy.
That's in, I think, November. And by January, I've lost my job. And on February, I'm sitting in county jail with my first felonies. And
yeah, of course, you know, your daddy's a DTF, man.
Man,
bro, what was you thinking?
Hit from the jump, didn't have a chance.
No, no, you lucky you ain't. They didn't train in day you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not saying anything negative about him, but
Yeah,
you never know. I mean, that is his daughter.
that is his daughter. Yeah.
Yeah. So your felony charges that you go to prison for, what are they?
Okay, so I catch these first two felonies, and they have the RSAT program
Yeah.
back home. It's resident substance abuse treatment, and it's a little 3 month in county, and then you do 9 months aftercare, and then so much probation. Well, I make it about a month into that, and I catch other charges. And that completely, revokes me from being able to have any of that stuff. So they hit me with my first two felonies and my second two felonies on a revocation, and lock me immediately back up, and I go back down. This time I go to prison. So my first two, the four charges that I went down for, I went down for a possession with intent to deliver, and a drug paraphernalia. And then the second two charges was just regular possession and another drug paraphernalia.
So
And
drug charges.
yeah, straight drug charges.
What was your first day in prison? So you were you said that you were, you grew up right, like you came up with a good family. There was no childhood trauma. Drug use started early, but you come from, a fairly decent upbringing.
Yeah.
So what's your first day in prison like? Walk me through that from the second you get there. Like, what does that look like?
So we get to diagnostics in Malvern. And, I've got this attitude. I've always had it for the most part, wherever I'm so like happy-go-lucky, like nothing really, I don't let anything bother me. I'm good. And like I'm saying the whole time I'm in county jail about to go down there, like, man, it's going to be all right. Like, I'm not worried about it. I was, but I wasn't going to let it show, like I'm still me, like we're going to make it. So we get down there, and, they're running through everybody like cows. And,
what do you mean they're running through?
So we show up. So we show up at the gate. We have a little drive up there, and I mean we're even cutting up on the way there. Like in the back in the squad car or whatever. And we get there, and we're in line to go into the building at Malvern. And we get in there, and they strip us down. They pull us in a little side room. Check everything, get us in our little white prison boxers, and check every belonging that we were allowed to have with us. They run us into a building, throw us in a little side room. We sit there for a little bit, and then they give us a shower, and all this is like right next to the guy you walked in beside. So, like I'm showering in this shower, boom, 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 all on display in front of it. All these workers and stuff that are here, and I'm just sitting there like, man, this is crazy. You
ain't never been naked before anybody.
Man, I'm used to seeing, the guys in the
gym.
in the pod, back in county for a while.
Yeah.
That's one thing, but these are like, nurses, all this, and I'm
right
just like, and I'm starting to freak out a little bit. And we, make it through the shower. They run through, they're giving you all these tests to see if you've got diseases. And, and I'm sitting there like, man, some of these girls pretty, I'm trying to talk to some of them, and they ain't having me.
Man. You out of there, man.
And I remember they sit me down, and they're talking to me about my charges, and just kind of like a little evaluation. And they're like, so you're an addict? And I'm like, no. And I'm like, no, like you don't understand. Like I've got drug charges, but like I've only
not a drug addict.
No, of course not. Like I've only used a couple of times. I don't really care for it that much. I just sold it. And
why did you lie to him?
Man, it's just like that. It's that stigma, Jimmy. Even for somebody that's using all the time.
But you're in prison on 4 drug charges.
But somewhere in my head, as long as I'm not the guy that's hooked on it, they're not gonna, and I'm thinking they're not gonna look at me. I've always, because mom and dad were, as strict as they were, I always had what kind of held me on for a long time was that they didn't know, like I kept it from them, and I had this mask on, this facade going that they didn't know anything, and they knew something. I knew that, but they didn't know what. And as long as I could keep that hidden, it wasn't real, So even when I get down there, I just keep on into it. Like I'm not a drug addict, I just sold it. I might use every now and then, but it's not me, like I'm just a part of the lifestyle. Okay. And well, I think, whether I was or not, I think I'm selling the whole thing. And boom, I get down there and they put me in in the SAT anyway, but
SAT.
SATP, yeah.
So is that why you didn't tell them the truth? You didn't want to go to SATP?
Well, no, I mean, I didn't even know what SATP was at this time.
Yeah,
but
you do now.
Yeah. Well, back to that first day. So they're walking us down after all this into our barracks, or to our one-man cells,
Yeah.
And and everything's new to me. I'm trying to take it all in and a little nervous, and everything's a lot. And we only stay in our one-man cells for probably a day or two, which they told us it was going to be like 2 weeks or something when we get there. Well, COVID's going on all through this too. So like we're constantly getting checked for COVID. And well, they send us over to these, it's like 100-man barracks, and it's like 2-man cells, in the, on part of the Malvern unit. And we're walking down into there, and this is my first look at like really what prison is, like the inmate part of it, not just the checking to see who's coming in, and the run through. This is just straight up. You're walking down a hallway, and you got the plexiglass windows on both sides, and you're heading to a door at the end, and there's inmates all on the windows, staring up, big scary dudes, and I'm thinking like, man, they're about to throw us in there with these guys, and like, these guys look like animals,
Hey.
Like they're just, and like they look like they got this place whooped. They done been here before, it looks like, and
you scared.
And I'm like, man, there ain't no way, like that was the first little hint of like, dang, like this is real. Like this is what they was talking about when they said, like prison's prison.
Yeah.
And
so did you get in any fights while you were in prison?
Not any like real like major fights. Like they told me the whole time, they're like, oh, when you get down there, they're gonna check you and see if so I'm ready for it and stuff, looking. But I didn't just have a whole lot of time, and I knew that as long as I stayed out of the out of the big mix of stuff, like maybe I could keep from getting knocked off and having to do more time than I was going to. So I mean, I'm normal. I can be pretty easy to get along with most of the time. Yeah. So, I mean, I figured as long as I didn't start too many problems, maybe I could keep out of it.
Did they come at you to like join a gang or anything?
Man, the only time that I ever even heard anything about it is there was some white boys down there, some bros, some Aryan guys that came to me, and he's like, he sits me down or sits down beside me and is talking to me, and he just has a regular conversation with me. And at the end of it, he kind of just gets up and he's like, well, man, he's like, you got a pretty good head on your shoulders and you don't have a lot of time. He says, a lot of the times we push for you. He says, but I'm not even going to come back and talk to you no more. That was all I ever heard about it.
Yeah.
That was all I ever heard about it.
Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah.
What was the craziest thing you saw in prison?
So the craziest thing was whenever I actually left the unit there in Malvern, and I went to what was going to be my unit, which was RLW, Randall Williams. And Pine Bluff, yeah. And I get there, and it's like the first or second day, like they have it set up like there's a lot of people going to Randall at that time. And when they get there, they're spending probably 2 or 3 days in this barrack, in about a 50-man barracks, and they're splitting them up, sending them to like Esther unit or the work complex, and or some of them to SATP. But there's about a week that I'm in there before they send me anywhere. And second day there, I see these guys staring at each other, and I mean, not staring at each other too much. I mean, like one of them was looking at one and the other one will look away, then he'll, me mug the other guy. And all of a sudden this guy gets up, little bitty dude, and walks over, and the other guy's not little at all. And he takes, and he's got the worst prison shank you've ever seen. It's a plastic fork pretty much that he's like broke off. But I mean, it's sharp, and he walks up and he hits dude with it, but he hits him like somewhere in the cheekbone, and it cuts him a little bit and breaks. And guy just snatches him up and just beats him down, and I've still like all this is in the first 2 or 3 weeks that like I've left county jail, and I'm thinking, like these guys are retarded.
This is a lot for a small town kid that came up in a wealthy family,
and I'm like,
yeah. That's nuts.
That was, so, I thought it was.
How long did you have to, you were short time. So how long did you spend in prison?
Okay. So in ADC, probably seven or 8 months.
That's a long time. A lot of time. I've seen a lot of people turn a 7-month bid into, multiple years.
Yeah.
It's real easy to do. We get down there and we crash dummy out.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people do that. Exactly that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I never got put into, in the position. I did get SATP, pretty quick after I got there. So I moved into the program barracks, and a lot of those guys were looking to either go home or on to their next phase at going home. And it made it it made it a lot easier, you know, than just being in regular population full of class fours.
Yeah.
So that was a blessing.
So let me ask you this: when you come home, do you stay clean or do you keep using
Man, it was almost like I couldn't wait to even get home
to get high?
Which, I mean, I got high in prison.
Yeah. Talk about it, boy. Talk about it.
So I'm in prison, and or county jail. Our county jail didn't have nothing going through it.
Which prison were you in when you got high?
When I got high, I was in Randall Williams, there in Pine Bluff.
So what did you do to get high there? Smoke banana pills?
No, man. They've got at that time, the most like meth I had ever even seen in one spot was in prison.
Ain't that crazy?
It's crazy. You know, like I don't know how it gets there, but I guarantee you ain't coming in on no inmate body. Not that much.
That is crazy. You can't stay clean in prison no more, man. It's hard.
No. And you know, like you hear all these people talking like, I don't do no meth whenever I'm in prison. Like but when you get down there, ain't none of them not doing it. So I mean, and it's rough, man. You know, and it's expensive, and I don't pull commissary when I'm there. You know, I do every now and then, but mom and daddy didn't just, you know, like they weren't just going to cater to me in there. They wanted me to learn my lesson. Hardcore lessons.
There is no harder time to do than time broke.
Indigent, baby.
If you can't draw down and make store, it's hard time.
Yeah.
It's hard time. You got to have a hustle. If you ain't got a hustle where you're making $20, $30 a week in commissary, like you're talking no hygiene, no shoes, you're not living comfortable. Like as time goes by, if you're serving 10 or 11 years, 5 or 6 years straight, then you're going to learn how to get all that. But if you're there doing a 7-month sentence, like that's 7 months of the hardest time you're ever going to do if you're broke, man.
Yeah, it was rough sometimes.
Yes.
You know, I made a friend that was a barber whenever I got there, and he really took a lot. Like he kind of like look out for me a lot. And I mean, that kept it from being quite as hard as it could have been. But of course, you know, like he's doing drugs down there, smoking K2 and you know, like
that's a whole nother monster.
That's a whole nother monster, man.
Yeah.
But, you know, being who I am, I had to try that too. And of course I liked it.
Pew. Deuce.
Man.
Rough. What was your experience like on that?
Man, I was always kind of shy about it. I didn't just want to like walk up in the middle of some people and, you know, like try to hit the little deuce stick or whatever. But, you know, I'd get it, you know, as much as I could, you know, or that was offered to me. Man, mine personally, like, wasn't ever too bad. Like, I never flopped out or anything like you see some of these people do. But I saw some people, like, there was a guy in our barracks that, I mean, he turned blue. Like, he fell out and we thought he was gone, like, and he came back, you know, but, you know, and you would think that would be the, you know, like, dang, like, that stuff's rough. But, you know, like, I saw people, like, even when he fell out, still out on the ground, looking around for the little stick that he dropped, you know, the little joint that he dropped of it, because that's what they wanted. You know, they wanted that flop.
Yeah.
That's what they called it, that flop.
It's nuts.
It's nuts.
So let's transition right here, right? Like, we've talked about how you came up. You had a good life, trauma, turned to drugs, ruined your life, went to prison, used drugs in prison. You couldn't even stay clean in prison.
No.
But how long have you been clean now?
6 months in a couple of days.
That's crazy.
Less than a week.
6 months, no blunts.
6 months, no blunts.
All right. So, all right, Nick. So you got the next step.
Yeah. Okay. So all of these feelings that I'd had, you know, that this drug, you know, or these drugs or whatever were making me so cool, you know, and making me fit in, you know, like I walk into a room, you know, when it all first started and it was like, hey, you know, it's Nick, you know, like, and there comes all this validation, you know, that I'd always been looking for, you know, and, you know, I really like, it really makes you feel like something, you know, when you're getting all that, you know, it blows your head up about it.
Attention feels good.
You know, and that people pleasing thing that I'd instilled in myself, you know, whenever I was so young, you know, looking for the same thing, you know, I'm finally getting all that, you know, and people are talking about me. It's a small town, you know, and I'm hearing about it, you know, and stuff. And it's making me feel like, you know, like I'm really something and really I'm just, you know, this dope fiend. And, but I mean, it just, for a couple of years anyway, you know, or a few years, you know, I just keep on, you know, with that. And I don't realize like how bad it's deteriorating, like as far as my life goes, and it keeps going down and getting worse and worse, especially when I came home from prison. Of course, when you get home, there's that little bit of, warm welcoming. Everybody's like, cool to see, it's cool you're back. Everybody kind of thinks, you get a little bit of validation because you went to prison, everybody's like, oh man, you went down, and that makes you feel even cooler. But it's back to the same thing, and little by little, it's just I'm going downhill and I'm going downhill, and I don't realize that I'm burning all these bridges with all these people, that I've known my whole life, that weren't in the drug world, that were positive in my life. And until they're not there anymore, it's like you don't realize that you're messing all this stuff up. Yeah. And pretty soon all I had were these people, that were negative influences. Yeah. Besides my parents, mama's always been there. But everybody else, I kept running them out of my life, and I'm not even realizing that I'm doing it. And when I do realize it, I think, there's something wrong with them, like, why are they mad at me? Like, I didn't do nothing to them. Yeah. And about a year and a half ago, I had a really bad car wreck, tore my leg up pretty bad, or my foot and my leg. And it was one of those things wherever, like, I almost lost my leg a couple of times, like during the thing. And
yeah, me and the sheriff of the Queen was talking about it the other day.
Really?
Me and Wilcox.
Oh, Walcott.
Yeah, Walcott. Yeah.
Yeah, he was on the scene of it.
Yeah, he said it was the worst thing he'd ever seen.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. I don't remember that either.
He still had a foot.
Yeah. But just like prison, like that was not enough. It wasn't enough for me, It was enough to get another script of painkillers. Yeah. And I stayed clean for a few months, mainly because I was scared that, as many surgeries as I was having, that some form of me using would have some negative effects with some anesthetics and might kill me, so I got clean. This was, I'm abusing my pain meds, but I'm not doing any meth. And, about 3 months or 4 months into that, though, I've got this big brace on my leg, but they let me start walking again, well, it's over with then, as soon as I hit the ground running, and it's like maybe the end of the summer, maybe September, like, and, man, and I'm walking everywhere, don't have no ride at this point. And I make it to these apartments and, in DeQueen, and there's these two sets of apartments in DeQueen where one's called Kings Gate and one's called the Villas. And they're literally, the only thing that separates them is there's a street in between the two of them. And everybody uses on both sides, and I start making friends there. And, somewhere in there, I get introduced to needles, and it's like when that hit my life, of course I love it, but everybody else around me, now people that use drugs even are starting to cut me off, when they find out what I'm doing. And which is crazy to me, like I thought it was so bad, that all these other people, that didn't do drugs had cut me off from their life. But now even other addicts, aren't messing with me. And pretty soon, I go from, I'm couch surfing, I can't go back to mom and dad's. I've got this huge thing on my leg, and I'm just out running the streets with it on anyway. And, and I keep on. At first, all these relationships are good, and I'm in these apartments, and I've got anywhere I want to stay. I've got anywhere I want to, and I'm loving it. But slowly, I start wearing my welcome out, all these places, and pretty soon, like there's not a happy face on even my friends, when I show up, and they're just looking at me like, like, man, this guy's still here. And it was people, that I really thought that would never have a warm welcome to walk into. I just always thought that these people were going to smile and be like, hey, look, Nick's back. Like, how crazy is that to think, here I am imposing on these people's lives. And I think that they're always just going to, be so happy for me to show up and sleep on their couch, and
you went from popular to being a pest.
Yeah. And there were some of them, would never, they might have at some point. Some of them wouldn't say it, because maybe they, we had been friends for a long time. They wouldn't tell me I was that pest, or they wouldn't tell me, that I'm a nuisance. But, I can see it, I know. And Man, that's one of the worst feelings in the world, man, is not feeling like anybody wants you around. Like even other addicts,
Yeah.
don't want you around. And you don't have, you've gone so far down that you can't, the job's gone out the window forever ago, so if you ain't, and hustling's kind of gone out the window too, because every time you try to hustle up any money, you get a sack and you just, you stick the whole thing in your arm.
Yeah.
And so pretty soon there's no money to be made. And if there is, you go spend that on yourself and stick that up your arm too.
Yeah.
And it's like slowly, like there was no smile at all. Like even the people that you could walk into with, a little bit of dope in your pocket, and maybe get the place to stay for the night, or at least a warm welcome for it or whatever, like you ain't even have nothing to offer now.
Yeah.
And I mean, like
they don't even want your dope.
They don't even,
bad you are.
and yeah. And then pretty soon, even if you do have anything, they don't even care. Like, I mean, it's bad when another addict knows you've got dope, they don't have no dope and they still don't let you in their house,
So how did all that lead to the next step? I'm still confused.
So there was this girl that lived in this is in Southwest, or I was in Southwest Arkansas at the time. There's a girl in Northwest Arkansas that she was from my hometown, and I started talking to her, and it's crazy how things work because, like, she was clean, for a couple of years, and said had been clean for a couple of years, and she, within 2 weeks of talking to me, she's like, hey, like, why don't you get clean and come up here? And I'm kind of like, skeptical of it, but in my head, I'm thinking, like somebody wants me to stay, like somebody wants me at their place.
I can get out of here where
I can get it. Yeah. And, like, but I'm still like thinking to myself, like, man, I'm going to have to, like, I've got to quit using for all this, like, and there was no way I was going to do that.
Yeah. I mean, why would you? You've already bit your mom.
Yeah.
Went to jail, lost your leg almost, used in prison. Like at this point, all you've got is pain.
Yeah. It's like all that childhood trauma that I skipped on, I just inflicted on myself later on.
Yeah. Adult trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry.
No. So I'm supposed to go up to see her on a Monday, and I'm supposed to be kind of like moving in with her at this point, like I haven't even met the girl at this point, it's crazy. Like I still can't believe her mindset on things.
You heard that song, Computer Love, Facebook Love?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it was.
Love.
And
that was horrible. That sounded like a dying baby, didn't it?
So I go with my friend actually, like on a Friday. He's a truck driver. And he's like, hey, man, like, I've got to make this trip to Rogers to go drop some stuff off, which just happened to be the same place I was supposed to be moving to the next Monday. And I'm like, I ride with you, like, so on the way up there, like, I'm calling her, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm coming through there. I know I'm not going to be moving up there till Monday, but like, do you want to see me? And she's like, yeah, blah, 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 all this stuff, well, on the way up there, I start having these thoughts in my head, like, man, if I move up with her, like she's got a kid, like I'm going to have to actually quit using, and I start deciding that, like, I can't do this. I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm going to go back home, as miserable as it is, at least I've got my, my syringes and, and my drugs. I don't have to get clean for some girl that I don't even know and her kids, like I'm scared of it. I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And on the way up there, I remember we stopped at this gas station, and I go in the bathroom, and I'm like, I decide I'm going to do a shot, and I get back in the bathroom, and I realize I don't have any water on me. And, the sink's right out there, but then I've got to go out there with the, and it's just a lot of work. So, without even thinking, I just like spit in this little thing that I'm mixing this up in. So here I am mixing meth with my own spit and about to inject it into my arm. And I do, and yeah.
That ought to get some views.
Whew, and, I
spit bump,
and I'm thinking to myself as I'm doing it, like I know how you get sick. I know it comes from bacteria. I know that can't be, there's a lot of bacteria, in a person's mouth, and I know all this, like, but I'm just not like, I don't care. I've just gotten to this point to wherever, like, I don't care.
You can't even think anymore.
I can't even think anymore. It's just like the first thing that comes to my, I'm just doing it,
it's like a dog. Just
the quicker I can get it in me and the more of it I can get in me, like the quickest way I can get it in me is how I'm doing it.
Like
and
a mindless animal.
Just keeps going and going and going. And man, I do this shot, and I like, immediately, I start feeling terrible,
Get
like
sick,
sick,
physically sick.
like before I even make it out of the bathroom stall, I've vomited like twice.
Oh my gosh.
And I've got cold shakes, like it's bad. Like, and I get back out and I'm trying to hold it together, and it's coming in waves, like it'll kind of go away for a little bit and I'll start thinking I'm getting over it. And then it hits me again, and I'm riding in this 18-wheeler with this guy that I know pretty well, but not just real well. And he's like, man, what's wrong with you? I'm like, oh, nothing, I'm just not feeling good all of a sudden. And we make it about another 30 minutes down the road. And I'm like, I'm feeling so bad that I'm like, hey, I'm going to call this girl and just have her come pick me up, like, and he's like, you sure, man? And in my head, I'm just thinking like, I can't, I'm just so sick. It just all happened at such the right moment, like I was feeling so bad, and I just happened to be so close to this girl, as far as distance wise goes, that I just call her up and I'm like, pick me up. I'm going to have him drop me off at a Walmart, or at a McDonald's, and just pick me up. But I know that like, if she sees me, and I'm with this guy and he's waiting there, and she sees like how messed up I am, and, like she's going to know,
Yeah.
and she's not going to let me come. And, and I'm thinking to myself like, man, how do I do this? So I tell the guy to leave me at this McDonald's. So I basically like, because I thought maybe she'd feel bad enough that she wouldn't send me back out on the streets if I had no way to go. But if this guy was with me and I had a way back home, she's definitely going to be like, nah, man, you can't come with me, get back in the truck with him and go back. So I make him leave me at this Rogers McDonald's, and I go in the bathroom there, and I'm like, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to do one more and that's going to make me feel better.
Yeah. You thinking you got cotton fever.
Yeah. And so I go in there and I do another one. Well, it does not make me feel any better. In fact,
Worse.
I'm, if not worse, it sure didn't help nothing, at this point, now I'm just, my head's just a big fuzz and I'm sick. And she gets there. I remember she's got her little 2-year-old daughter in the car with her, thinking that I haven't used in a day or two, and that I'm going to come to her to get clean, and I don't want her to know that I'm high. She had to have known. She never said anything, but, had to. But she didn't make me, she didn't throw me back out on the streets. There wasn't, she never said anything. So I was safe. And when I get to her place, at first it's really great. I'm talking to this girl, and her family starts, when they find out that she's with me, they start threatening her to let her see her other child, because they had custody of one of her children, because she was previously in her addiction, and it was bad from there. We started arguing and stuff, and she was a Jimmy McGill fangirl though. And she's like, hey, we're trying to find this place for me to go without me just getting kicked back out on the street. And she's like, hey, so there's this guy on TikTok that I'm following, his name is Jimmy McGill. He's got a halfway house in Clarksville, or a recovery house in Clarksville. Maybe you could get in there. And I'm, she shows me a picture of you, and I'm like, that guy looks really familiar. And then and then I see a picture of your book, and I'm like, man, I read this guy's book whenever I was in prison. Like, I know, like, and it's kind of cool, And so we start talking about it, and I guess she messaged you.
Yeah, no, and somehow she got my number and called.
Yeah, well, I think she worked at a rehab, and I think somebody up there might have given it to her.
Yeah.
And man, it was just crazy how all that worked out. But even at this point, like, I still am not wanting to really be sober. Like, after I'm not sick anymore, I'm right back to thinking like
desperation.
Yeah. And I'm just kind of in a new place, don't know anybody, so I just haven't yet. I haven't went out, walking the streets trying to find. I'm afraid I'm gonna get kicked out of her place. Won't have anywhere to go. But then I find out I'm coming to this place, this next step, and I get here, and it's the first time in my life that I've ever found any sort of want to inside of me.
What ran through your mind the first time you set foot on the property with us?
I remember I was really annoyed because she was like really, really, really wanting to like walk through with me.
Yeah.
And so I'm really annoyed. I'm really scared because like, I'm coming into this new place. Like, I'm going to have to be clean. Like, I haven't had any sort of social experiences, sober. Like, I've lived like my entire, I used to say I lived my entire life, my entire adult life, on drugs. But really, like, and I didn't even think about this till after I've been here and actually get some knowledge, and stuff. But I've even most of my like childhood that I can even remember, I was doing the same thing. Just it was always something, So it's like now I'm trying to make these friends where I'm coming into a place where I'm thinking I'm going to have to make these friends and these relationships without any of that assistance. And man, I was scared.
Yeah.
I didn't know what to expect,
How long did you stay with us before you started getting comfortable?
Man, it was incredibly fast. I mean, within a week, I'd already built a lot of relationships with a lot of the guys. Like,
it's kind of crazy.
It's really crazy. I've been at another place, kind of like this. I just say kind of like there's nothing like this, but it was set up to be something like this. And it was
they
just
had a
like
vision of being what we are.
Yeah, but it was broken, and like the way the guys got along there was like, you had your guys over here that wanted to be clean, and you had the other half of the guys, or more than half, that didn't want to be clean, and they just clashed. They did not get along. There was always animosity. Everybody hated, somebody. And here it's just like, man, it's really like it's like this big family.
Yeah, recovery is the culture here.
And I'm like, my family's always been such a big, part of my life. They were always there. Even whenever I pushed them away, they were always there. And man, it's just like, it's like an extension of that here, and man, it's great.
Yeah. So what's been the biggest challenge for you living in a sober living?
Coming from all that, just I do what I want when I want, type thing.
Yeah.
And then being somewhere wherever, like at first it was kind of like, dang, like I can't do this and I can't do this and I can't do this.
Rules.
Yeah, that's what they call them.
Rules.
And but then like when you realize that those rules are there, and the aspect or the angle they're coming at is from love, and that they're there, I mean, for my benefit and for everybody else's benefit. When you actually come to that realization, it's I mean, once you get there, it's you realize like, man, these guys really love me here. Like it's not just some business, or it's not just some whatever, it's a real thing. Like these people like
love you.
These people love me. Like not even just you and Miss Chelsea, like that was pretty apparent, from the get-go. But the guys here, like every one of them actually like loves me.
Yeah.
And I mean,
that is your family. Like
it really is.
Next to, man, we are a family. Like it's crazy. Like we love each other and we help each other and we're there for each other and we defend each other. And I've never seen anything like it. It's such a sense of camaraderie and belonging to, you know what I mean? And it's the type of shit I searched my whole life for.
Me too.
Like that's why I was a gang member, because I wanted to feel that sense of unity and belonging to. I wanted purpose, and I couldn't find it until I found recovery.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of places that should be like what ours are. And people, Colton was in here earlier and we were talking, and he's like, man, I've been to 7 different rehabs. I've been to 7 different Kim Free houses, and there is nothing like Next Step, and I think it's the time that we spend with you guys, the one-on-one. It's like me and you. We just came back from Wichita.
Yeah.
3 days. We're on a highway. Just me and you. And I don't see other recovery houses doing that. I don't see directors flying to a different state with a guy at the house to invest in him. This is true discipleship. This is ministry work, man. And there's a bunch of places that say they want to help people find a way to live clean, and they throw God in the mix. Yada, 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 yada. Okay. Bible study alone ain't going to keep me clean. God gave me a doctor. And when you break your arm, you carry your ass to the doctor. I'm not saying that you can't pray and God will heal. God can do whatever God wants to do. But he also gave you enough common sense to use the doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To get some treatment.
Yeah, go get some help, man. And so I can tell you this, Nick. You have been one of the biggest blessings to me and Chelsea that we've had since we moved up here. Like when I see you, when I see the progress that you've made, you are leaps and bounds away from the person you were when you got here. When you got here, you were a broken shell of a 24-year-old kid. And today you're a fully employed person. You're a good son. Your parents are proud of you. I know they're proud of you because they message me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Chelsea is proud of you. I am proud of you. You are a role model in that house, man. Grown men twice your age look up to you. And that ought to make you feel good, man.
Yeah.
Everything you went through was free on the job training for the man you're becoming. It's giving you a purpose, and that purpose is to reach the new person in recovery. And you're killing it, man.
Don't make me cry, Jimmy.
I don't want to make you cry, but I want you to know that we love you, and we're glad that you're at Next Step.
I love being
and
there.
And all the people watching and listening, they're glad you're at Next Step. And they love seeing you. Look at Facebook over there jumping.
Jumping, huh?
Jumping. So what I want you to do, Nick, is I want you to look right here in this camera, and I want you to tell any viewer, any listener, exactly whatever's on your heart.
If I had to tell him one thing that was on my heart, it would have to be, man, God works in ways that put you in places at the right time. You know, all we've got to do is get out of the way and, man, and let him work, you know. And when, you know, he'll do his part, you know, you've got to do your part. I mean, but his part's way bigger than yours. So the work's not going to be, you know, the work's there, but like I said, God will do most of it. Get out of his way and pray to be able to see what his will is, and you'll make it there wherever you're trying to go.
That's good stuff. Nick, I want to thank you for coming on the show. For every watcher and viewer, thank you for your love and support. Please follow us on all social media platforms, Jimmy McGill Live on Facebook, Prison to Purpose on TikTok and YouTube. You can stream the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, all streaming platforms. Without you, we're nothing. And, you know, big shout out to Next Step for making champions like you. You know what I mean? And so we cannot wait to follow up with you in 6 or 7 months and see what your recovery journey is looking like now. So, Nick, thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
You've been listening to From Prison to Purpose with Jimmy McGill. Please subscribe on any of the major podcasting platforms and on YouTube at Prison to Purpose. This podcast is produced by Ty King with American Business Engine and executive producer Jimmy McGill. For more information, visit us at jimmymcgill.org.